Hey, ever had a fresh baked scone? Ever made a fresh baked scone? Ever had someone come at you with these kind of questions about your scone experience? Well, what if I told you that not only was it really easy to make fresh baked scones, that you could also make them sweet or savory? What if I told you you could make them vegan? Well, we're gonna figure that out together. Sweet and savory scones today at Café Gabe. I've gone ahead and made the executive decision to stop filming and putting in the video everything that I'm doing literally. So just know I have my dry ingredients for my sweet and for my savory. Don't mix them up, especially if you're trying to make one of them vegan. It's going to be important that we kind of keep those in order. Namely, for my sweet, I'm following a base recipe that I found forever ago. It's flour, sugar, baking powder with ultimately some liquids that are going to be cream. I'm using a vegan cream. I am using vanilla, and a traditional replacement for eggs in a dish like this is applesauce. 1/4 cup of applesauce to an egg. You can also do what's called like a flax egg. I'm sure you could probably just do like an oil, but I have found this to work best for me. I've used applesauce instead for a while and it's always worked fine. For my savory, because of the base recipe kind of being made more for sweet, I've changed a few things up. I've cut back the sugar that the sweet recipe calls for, and I've added spices, smoked paprika, pepper, garlic powder, smoked salt, because we're gonna make this a chicken sausage feta delicioso scone. Okay, so I have my two options here. Now, name of the game will be pastry. Anything with a pastry type of crust has to be kept cold until it is ready to bake. So I have my butter in the freezer already. It's been freezing overnight. Once I get my butter grated into these, I'm gonna throw whichever one I'm not working on in the moment into the fridge to keep it cold. Mix up the other one, get that ready, swap them out. For starters, we're gonna go with the sweet. I think sweet would be great to start with. That way we have a vegan, clean workspace to begin with, and then when we throw our savory, we'll clean it up a bit, but it won't be as big of a deal because that's not as vegan. So let me put our savory ingredients away and get with the sweet. Vegan sweet scones. I am ready for this. I've made this before. Making scones vegan really isn't that tough. I would highly recommend not making them gluten-free. Make something else. I have not had good luck with gluten-free pastry type breads, but vegan, easy. I have a stick of gluten-free butter here. We're living that pastry sort of life technique. We need to grate this bad boy down into our dough, pastry cutter it in, and then we can add our liquid. So let's get started on that. I'm going to open up my vegan butter. This is definitely a technique I wouldn't skip for you guys. I'm going to show y'all how I do it. But I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt that they can measure a cup of whatever ingredient and pour it into the bowl. It took me a while, but I got there too. Okay, I'm gonna do a coarse grate. I mean, you could do, I guess, a fine if you want to. The coarse is fine for this. And I'm gonna just get that in there. Just like we did with the apple crumble strata cake. Now, I have found that vegan butter doesn't freeze quite as well as regular butter, but it still works totally fine. That's not the issue. Remember, with pastry crusts, we want that butter to be as cold as possible for as long as possible. And we want our pastry, or our final product, to have kind of a mix of little buttery pockets. That's what's gonna give us that flaky, crispy goodness that we expect out of a scone. I'm gonna shake this down a little bit. Try to scrape out what I can because we want all the butter we can get here. We want all the butter we can get against the grate. I am doing this against the grate. Okay, I've got my butter grated in there. Time to do our pastry cutting magic. Gonna kind of mix it in a bit, toss it around a bit, but then start pushing down. Mix in a bit, start pushing down. As you'll notice, I'm using a huge bowl. A huge bowl because Café Gabe is infamous for making a huge mess because Chef Gabe doesn't ever plan ahead the way he should. But we're ready today. Scooping it down, being sure my butter isn't hiding on the pastry cutter. Cutting into it. Let's go. Cool beans. I like it. I like it already. That was nice and easy. Pretty sure that's showing up. You can see that we have these little bits, little crumbles, pieces, pedacitos of solid, buttery flour. That's what we want. All right, got my dries. I have my vegan cream mixture. Again, this is going to be some nice vegan heavy cream, applesauce, and a bit of vanilla. And that's how we're going to approximate that egg that we're missing here because we're going vegan. I'm going to just very slowly drizzle this in. Mix that a bit more. Drizzle in a bit more. Mix that a bit more. I'm gonna do like 3 additions. I mean, don't stress about it. Boom. I'll clean off my spatula so I can get some more of that stuff in the bowl. So we want all the liquid. Particularly in a vegan recipe, we want as much of the liquid as we need. As much as we need. Not more necessarily, but definitely not less. I'm gonna mix this just a little bit, just enough to kind of incorporate and get it kind of wet. Hopefully we can see here, because I still have to add in our mix-ins. Now, what sweet recipe are we doing today? I'm gonna give us a go at a candied walnut Earl Grey icing sweet scone. The icing won't be until the very end, but for now, we can add in our walnuts. These are some candied walnuts. Nothing too fancy. You can do it with candied pecans, praline. I mean, mix-in-wise, you actually have a lot of options. I've done it with cranberry and white chocolate chips. You know, you could. I don't like chocolate that much, but you could do a chocolate version. I see why not. I'm going to grab a couple of these, just like a little handful, crush them up with clean hands, throw them in. I like it chunky, and I have enough dexterity in this hand to do this. You can just take a hammer to it. It's totally fine. A few more. I'm shooting for about maybe 1/4 cup. You don't need that much or it'll get in the way of binding your scone together. So just enough so that every little bit of scone has a bite of some sweet goodness. Now again, this is fairly simple because the icing is going to come at the very end, not a big deal. The more mix-ins you add, just bear in mind, the more mix-ins you add, you need to be mindful. You can't add a cup of 2 different things. You probably need to add 1/2 cup of 2 things. Too many mix-ins and you'll make a mess with your scones. So let me finish stirring this and then we're gonna turn it out onto a surface. Okay, I've got my mix pretty well put together. I'm gonna show this camera right here. Nice-ish, right? There's still a bit of loose flour in there, but that's okay. We're gonna end up kneading it in as it goes. Can I just lightly knead a surface? Lightly flour a surface here, just so I can turn this out comfortably. Yes. And I'm gonna say it again, because it's good to be redundant in this case, with clean hands, spare your guests, spare yourself. Gonna knead this into a disc shape. We're gonna make triangle scones, so I want a round shape, which seems geometrically incongruent, but it's gonna make sense in a second. Here we go. Okay. Oh yes, this dough is wet. Now, if it ever feels too sticky, you can always add a little more flour to your hands. If it seems excessively sticky after a while, maybe add a little more flour to the dough directly. Not much, do tablespoon at a time. That's a lesson I learned the hard way and good sage wisdom I was given from something I read forever ago. Don't add too much flour at one time. It's a lot harder to make up for dry dough than it is to correct wet dough. Now it feels like it's sticking really badly to the counter. You can always add a little more flour. Sprinkle it on, over top and around, in those 1 tablespoon approximate increments. It's a little sticky, so I'm gonna add a little, maybe a tablespoon more. Don't add too much. It can be a little sticky, that's fine. I just want it to be a little less sticky on the countertop. That's what I'm trying to, that's the point that I'm counting as done. Is it still sticking really badly to the countertop? If so, I need a little more flour. Okay, I like my little disc here. right? It's a little tender still, but I'm okay with that. What I need to do now, I'm gonna make 8 scones per disc. So a nice 8 cut. Ultimately, I'm gonna put them on this baking sheet. I'm not gonna bake them on this, they'll need more room, but I need to chill these for at least 6 to 8 hours. That would be ideal. So I'm going to get my cuts. That's not even close to even. This is why I'm not in school anymore. Boom, boom, okay. 8 little wedges. Hopefully that comes out okay. I'm trusting my phone to focus properly. I'll lay that down. And we chill this. You can chill it for like an hour if you want to. I like to chill it, if I have the time, which I do, I like to chill it maybe even overnight. The more it is chilled, the better the butter kind of reforms. And also, the better it holds its shape. It won't spread as viciously otherwise. I can just fit these 12 on, these 8 on here. Boom, good deal. So, I have my 12 here. I just had it again, 12, 8. I have my 8 scones here. Gonna throw this in the fridge, do a little quick cleanup, and then move on to the savory. Okay, on to the savory. I've got a middle cleanup here. I'm not as worried about cleaning everything off because again, we're doing vegan first, then non-vegan. So the non-vegan can touch whatever it wants. It'd be kind of a not so cool move to tell someone, yeah, it's totally vegan when it's been covered in egg and milk or touching egg and milk and all that jazz. So, box grater, full butter. Let's do this again. Gonna just grate this in there as fast as I safely can. We do not want to add any bits of ourselves to this dish. I'm not saying you aren't delicious, but less than ideal for your guests. And again, when you get towards the end of the stick of butter, just be extra careful. There's literally no reason to rush this. Well, you need to be a little quick because we don't want the butter to melt too much, but it's not worth your fingers. If for any reason you think you took too long, whatever that would look like, just pop it in the fridge for like half an hour. No need to stress. Okay. I like that. Gonna try to carefully scrape out what I have inside the grater. In a rare, unique set of circumstances, a very rare occasion, more butter tastes better. Who would have thunk it? The butter imparts flavor to everything it calorically destroys. All right, same deal. Pastry cutter. Gonna just cut in there with clean hands. Get going. This is already so savory. The great spices. I made a mess with my bigger bowl. How did I manage that? Scrape along. So to be clear, these pastry cutters, they're not sharp, right? They're just, what you call it, narrow. They're fine. So just to cut through this butter, cut through this flour. But it would take a lot to cut you. I don't know how you manage that. Not judging. I've made incredibly stupid mistakes in the kitchen and hurt myself. But yeah, this would be a challenging one. Same deal. I've got great little bits of floury, buttery goodness that hold their shape. Got my cream mixture here. Now this is full non-vegan, regular, heavy cream and egg. And I went ahead and threw in actually a teaspoon of Valentina. I went with Valentina to make it a little spicy. I mean a little. It'll have a toe of a kick, if you know what I mean. So a little addition here, a gentle mix. Dish in there, gentle mix. Dish in there. We need to add in our mix-ins. I have about a half cup, which was one good sized link of chicken sausage that I've diced. I'm gonna pour that in there. And then I've got some good feta cheese here. I'm going to do with this is another, maybe not quite half a cup, maybe closer to like a third, but I'm gonna just eyeball it because I'm not that worried about it. Yeah, about a third of a cup in there. Let's go a full half a cup. Gonna mix that in a bit better. And once it's mostly held its shape, or it's mostly all wet, not too much loose flour, we'll turn this over, flour the surface, and keep kneading. I need so much. I need l'amore. When l'amore. Okay, amore. Flour in hand, surfaced. Let's turn this over. Now I suspect this will form with less additional flour than the vegan scones did because the applesauce proves to be a bit wetter than the egg does in the grand scheme of things. So this should work a lot smoother than that one did as far as how much additional flour we may or may not need. I have cleaned off my spatula of all the good stuff. All right, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crumbly still. That's okay, that won't last long. The more we mash, the more all the flour gets a little bit of that moisture and comes together. Now I have found that the savory version, particularly when it's not vegan, when it's just regular, that seems almost prejudicial, what regular, you know what I mean, it isn't vegan, will be a little drier looking, but it's okay. It comes out great. It comes out great. We don't want to make it too wet. If we have to, we can add a little bit of cream, about maybe half a tablespoon at a time, but I have found very rarely I've needed that. Now you gotta take me at my word on this, but this is a much firmer batter dough, a much firmer dough than the vegan scones. That's okay. That's a-okay. As long as everything chills like it should, it won't be an issue. We don't want any huge faults. Okay. Gonna slide this into some of the flour so it's easier to cut. And we are good. Now, again, this is a much, much firmer dough than the vegan one. And again, that's totally fine, totally normal. Got my tray right here, just so I can put it in the fridge. I may not bake it in this, but I do need to put it in something so that I can put it in the fridge for those 6 to 8 hours. You know, you can just do an hour you want. I mean, again, you can probably just put it in the freezer for an hour if you want to try that. The idea is just so that it doesn't explode and spread out as it cooks. Since it isn't really bound by anything. Throwing this in the fridge here in 2 seconds. Okay, I have 2 types of scones. I've got my sweet, what's going to end up being an Earl Grey iced candied walnut scone, and a smoky chicken sausage feta scone. I'm gonna wait those 8 hours and we're gonna be hungry by then. So here we go. Okay, it's been about 8 hours now. That should be plenty of time for these to have been in the fridge. I've taken half of the batches that I have and kept the other half in the fridge. I'm gonna make this in 2 separate goes, as it were. The last step we need to do for both of these is to go ahead and give them one little coating of cream. The vegan cream for the sweets, the regular cream for the savories. I'm also going to sprinkle a little sugar on the top of the sweet ones. These are gonna bake at 400 degrees for 20, 25 minutes. The important thing is to kind of go by how they look. They really want to be golden brown. They want it and I want it, huh? You really want to wait for that golden brown sort of texture, puff up, kind of get crispy. The vegan ones won't be quite the same texture as the regular ones because of that apple egg difference, but they should still be crisp, scony scones, right? So what I'm gonna start with, as I did earlier, I'm going to use my vegan cream first and coat those, then my savory. What I've also got here is a cup of tea going. That'll help us with our icing later. So a nice Earl Grey going there. For now, let's go ahead and coat these. I'm gonna coat every part of this that I can. Don't need to coat the bottom, just coat the tops, basically all the sides that are exposed. Okay, gorgeous. Got a little, just granulated sugar. If you have coarse sugar, that would be better. I don't have any, so I'm gonna be extra delicate not to put too much, but just kind of a Sugar Bay type of sprinkle on top, huh? Got my savories here. Some regular heavy cream, just coat on top. And this is about 2 tablespoons of cream in my little reserve here, you know, but just use enough to get your coverage here. Okay, these are ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna throw them both in together. Again, it should be about 20, 25 minutes, but you're looking for the golden brown color. That's gonna be your tell. In the meantime, gonna throw them in and I just have to wait. Here we go. Okay, those bad boys are ready. Let's get them out of there. Oh, yes. Come to Papa. 26-ish minutes, 26, 27 minutes in the oven. Oh, yes. It's so interesting how the texture of the vegan ones came out differently, but just looks so good all the same. So, as you might imagine, these absolutely need to cool off for a little bit, but that's okay. We will let them both cool calmly, and then we'll make our tea icing for the sweet ones, and we'll get a chance to test them. But these need to sit for probably at least 20 or 30 minutes to come down. I might remove them with the paper just to get them off the baking sheet so I can throw in the next batch. But in the meantime, gonna let these sit, gonna prepare our icing, and we'll go from there. Vamos. All right, taste test time. I've gone ahead, I did this icing. Very simple, very easy, just some powdered sugar, a very nice black tea that I added a bit of milk to. I went ahead and added some food coloring to it to try to darken it a little bit. And honestly, now it kind of looks more like a chamomile or a lavender, which is fine. This is just not what I did. So on the next batch, I might change that coloring so it may not be the final picture you see. But just know it's just sugar, powdered sugar, a nice dark black tea, well steeped, and whisk it together with some food coloring in this case. But I have my savory, I have my sweet. Let's start savory, then go for dessert. Not gonna lie, I've made these before. I have no doubts what I'm about to experience will be wonderful. And my lack of doubts was justified. My gosh, guys. It's just crazy how the way it's seasoned with the mix that we've made, it just works. Of course it does. Salt, garlic, smokiness, the paprika, the feta cheese added a little extra saltiness. The chicken sauce is a little extra texture to what you're eating, but it just falls apart in your mouth in the best way, in the way only a pastry crust type of vibe could do. Oh yes, all right, put that down for now. I am not hungry at all, but I'm gonna power through this tasting. Okay, savory, 11 out of 10, no brainer. But the sweet, the vegan sweet, that's the real question here, right? Well, I got a piece right here. Looks pretty good. Let's give it a shot. Oh my gosh. It is the same deal. It's just the perfect, I say fall apart in the best way possible. You know, it isn't dry, it's so moist. The outside's got a nice crust to it, but the inside is nice and soft. The walnut flavor, I don't have a single piece of walnut in here, but the flavor really permeated well. And it's very simple, really. It's just a vanilla sugar scone that we put some walnuts in, candy walnuts. Now, the tea, the icing actually is pretty good. The icing itself has got a pretty strong taste. That black tea is pretty strong. It's a wonderful little accent, you know. But, all right, 11 out of 10. These two scone recipes together are 22 out of 20. You can't make that math up. It makes no sense. Guys, thank you, as always, for coming to Café Gabe. Another wonderful recipe down. I really hope you guys give this a shot. If you wouldn't mind, if you haven't already, hey, subscribe to the channel. I genuinely have a lot of things down the pipe coming. If you tried this at all, liked it, please like the video. It really helps me with the algorithm, all that jazz, grow our community. And if you have any ways you think about changing up the recipe, I would love to hear what y'all think. What would you do on the savory side? What would you do on the sweet? What do you think would be an interesting change in all of that? I've gone so far as to think, man, what about like a mint chocolate sweet scone? I love mint chocolate. I know it's not everybody's favorite. I love mint chocolate. But hey, let me know what you all think. But as always, guys, you know, thank you for coming to Café Gabe. I'm gonna have a couple more bites of these. Gotta save the rest. I'm taking them to brunch tomorrow. Cheers.